Global protests are happening everywhere. It seems as if we all want our voices to be heard, and quite frankly, I don't think we're going to take no for an answer. I'm bringing you a new season of Fashion Psychology TV. I am your host, Dr. Dawnn Karen. And on today's episode of Global Posh, we will be zooming in on the Middle Eastern region, focusing on the country Iran. Let's get into it. Protests are currently happening in Iran due to the tragic death of Mahsa Amini. Mahsa Amini was killed tragically September 16th, 2022. She was killed just 4 days shy of her 22nd birthday, and she was killed 3 days after she was arrested by the Guidance Patrol, aka the Morality Police. Mahsa Amini was traveling from S6.E1 to Tehran, Iranian's capital, and was arrested for wearing her hijab inappropriately, and also arrested for wearing jeans that were too skinny. She was traveling with her brother. After Mahsa Amini was arrested, she was beaten badly, so badly that she suffered from cerebral hypoxia and organ failure, though her autopsy report states that she had some pre-existing medical conditions. Now, reports say that Mahsa Amini's body was buried at a burial site in her hometown of S6.E1. I can say that protests were actually happening in her hometown at the burial site. Not only protests have been happening in Iran, they've also been happening within the Iranian diaspora at large. Public figures, celebrities of Iranian descent are coming out in camaraderie. If you hear the hesitation in my voice, it's because school children and young girls are protesting, and some of which who have been killed. They have been defiant and brave, burning their headscarves on social media, cutting their hair in defiance of Mahsa Amini's death and other women who have died at the hands of the Morality Police. Now, this may sound eerily familiar. If you can recall, in 2020, on May 25th, George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and the Midwest region of the United States. He too was in police custody and was tragically killed. This too also sparked nationwide protests to end racism within schools and corporations here in America. Now, fast forward to Mahsa Amini's death today, which sparked protests. Now there is a dialogue taking place between the Parliament and the Supreme Council of the Islamic Revolution. Within about 2 weeks' time, there should be some type of verdict or resolution regarding the compulsory hijab law. Now, will the compulsory hijab law be relaxed? Will it be completely abolished? Only time will tell. Now, it's important to note that the compulsory hijab law has been enforced by the Guidance Patrol, otherwise known as the Morality Police. Now, they are an arm of law enforcement, particularly under the Besiege, which is a paramilitary force. It's also important to note that most people in the West tend to think that women in Iran wear the typical black hijab, and that is not the case. They've actually worn it very similar to how I am wearing mine, where they show parts of their hair, okay, parts of their face. And I would know this as I had an unexpected landing in Shiraz, Iran, 2018. And I came out in the Iran front page as well as their other newspaper. It gave me a good chance at understanding the compulsory hijab law there. I met two women in which they told me that they were arrested several times for wearing their hijab inappropriately. I can recall while in Shiraz, Iran, that I was given a sheet to wear, and I remember it bringing my mood down tremendously. And to combat the fear that I had, I decided to mood enhancement dress, and also to employ my fashion identity assimilation theory, whereby you use style to fit in to said group or culture. The second fashion psychology field theory that we'll be discussing today, fashion situational code switching, whereby you change clothing or alternate styles of clothing depending on your cultural or social situation. So in one context, you may dress one way, and another context, you may dress in another way. Now, both theories, fashion identity assimilation and fashion situational code switching, come at a psychological cost. How high would depend on your internal temperature. Now, you're being told to hide aspects of yourself. It could be due to feelings of safety, feelings of worthiness. Here's the caveat. When your last slither of individual style is being stripped away by those external forces, this is when there's an emotional outburst or outcry or some type of emotional response that takes place that comes from within. And this is what's happening currently in Iran and in the Iranian diaspora. You're probably wondering, now, Dr. Dawnn Karen, I cannot relate to this. Well, I would say to you, surely you can relate. Anytime we question how we look in lieu of looking a certain way to be accepted or approved by a particular group of individuals, you too have experienced what's taken place in Iran. Now, yours may be that you have a sleeve of tattoos and you need to cover it while you're attending this conference. It could be that, your daily crop top look is now a turtleneck because you're going to meet your partner's parents. It could be that you are in the legal field and you work as a lawyer and you have to go before a judge, so you must dress appropriately. It could simply be that you are in a state where masks are mandatory, or in a institution where masks are mandatory. Maybe not to the extent as what's taking place in Iran, but we surely can relate. Again, as I stated earlier, we all want our voices to be heard. And not only do we want our voices to be heard, we want all wrongs be made right. If you don't believe me, just Google my name and the New York State Supreme Court. Jen Jian Azadi. If you would like me to cover a story next, feel free to drop it in the comments below. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are watching me in your part of the world.